Today is March 25th, 2016, and this is Frances Laird with the Stockbridge Area Genealogical and Historical Society. Today I am at 416 Main Street in Gregory, interviewing Peg Stoffer about her experiences growing up and living in the area as part of the Stockbridge Oral History Project for the Capital Area District Library and the Stockbridge Area Genealogical and Historical Society. Also with us is Laura Walsh and Ben Barber, Peg's grandson. First, can you give us your name, your whole name?
Muriel G. Stoffer. Crana Stoffer.
And where and when were you born?
11/30/22.
And where were you born?
In Unadilla.
Yes, in a house or
At I think at my grandmother's. I'm not sure, but I think my grandmother's.
Ah. And what were the names of your parents?
Eileen and Clarence. Eileen Bull, and Clarence Crana. And Clarence Crana was a son of my grandmother in Unadilla, where I would have been born.
Mm-hmm. What were some of your earliest memories of your childhood in Unadilla?
Went to Unadilla school up on the hill there, and I used to wait for Virginia May, my cousin, walking down the road and walking to school with her.
Mm-hmm.
And one time it's interesting is because it was a bad snowstorm. And we walked in the snow clear up to our knees to get up to the school, up that hill in Unadilla. And we should have known better, but of course the teacher couldn't get there. So we had to turn around and come back. But I always walked to school with my cousin and the Richmond boys, and we had several different teachers, of course, and I went through the 8th grade down there.
So, did you have any brothers and sisters?
I had 6 siblings. Next to me was my sister, and she is gone, and then my brother is gone. And then there was a kind of a lull in between, and then I had 2 sisters and 2 brothers.
So it was a big family.
Right.
So I imagine you had a lot of chores to do as a child.
I was more of the indoors person. I would do more cleaning and picking up stuff. I always wanted stuff put in place. And my sister was more of the outdoor one, so she'd go help milk the cows and do chores outdoors with my dad.
So you must have learned how to cook, and
I learned how to cook. I'm not really interested in cooking, and I'm not a very good cook, but I did that. Mm-hmm.
So what did you do for fun when you were young?
Well, I don't know. Just like farm kids do, we played around the farm, and we had a sand hill where we could make little roads in it, and we'd take our toy cars and go up there and make roads in that. And we always went after the cows with my mother, and we went down a lane down in Unadilla, and there was a flat sand hill, and we could always stop there and find Indian arrowheads, because the Indians went up this back road and down through Unadilla, down to the river creek. So we could find Indian arrowheads. Had a lot of fun, and then we would go out, and when my dad was plowing, we'd go out and sit with our legs in the furrow and let the dirt come over them. It's a wonder we didn't get our legs plowed off, but that's what we did. And otherwise, we just, I don't know, we did a lot around the farm helping.
Did you have dolls and tea parties and that kind of thing?
Oh yeah, we had dolls, and I don't remember nothing just like girls do. We just had dolls, played with them. And then I'm thinking of the house down in Unadilla that's still there, but we could go up the stairway on the south side, and there was a window there, and we sat in the sunshine in that window and played with paper. We had paper dolls. And then another crazy thing we did was we had the front porch, and we'd take empty boxes, like empty cereal boxes and things, and we'd play store out there. We'd set them on the shelf and had a storekeeper. And another thing I did, I always liked to be I was the oldest one. And I played the piano, but I took piano lessons a little bit. And then I would play the piano, and I'd have my brothers and sisters sing or recite poems or something, and my folks would sit there and listen. We had a program.
You had performances.
I don't know what else to mention.
Did you play any games, like softball or any ball games?
At school. Oh, yeah, we had ball games at school. And then we played fox and geese, where they made the tracks in the snow. You know how they did that. And down at school, we did an awful lot of hide and seek and throw the ball over the house and just stuff like that.
Tell us some more about how it was to learn in a one-room school.
The 8th graders would sit on at the back row, back by the furnace. And now I look at that school and I wonder how on earth I thought they were so far back. And then we had a recitation seat in front, and she would call certain grades up there, and we had to do our lesson. And then we had the furnace there, so in the wintertime she'd have us bring a potato, and we could put it on that furnace top and have a hot potato for lunch. As we got in the different grades, we would be able to sit further back away. The kindergarten kids had to sit in front.
So it was warmer in the back.
Oh, yeah. And we always had a Christmas program, and I always seemed like I was always the one that gave the greeting and the opening. Our folks would come, and we'd put on a Christmas program for them. And then I remember the water cooler special. The pump would be outdoors, and then this water cooler would be inside. And there was always a dipper there, and we all drank out of that dipper. It was comical. Anyhow, the girls had one side, and the boys had the other side, and just normal school. And we always said the allegiance to the flag in the morning, and then we had these flip things, Humpty Dumpty and Little Miss Muffet and Old Jack Horner, and they were always on a big colored easel thing, and we had to learn them. And then we could always go out for recess and play ball or whatever, and we had to go outside to the toilet. Girls on one side, boys on the other side.
Do you remember what books you used in your schooling?
Well, we had geography books. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. And read. What did you read? And do you remember?
We had readers that we read out of, but we just a normal. I don't remember the name of the reader, but we read them. And then we always had penmanship, and we held our pen the right way, which they don't do now, but we held it the right way. And we did circles and the up and downs. I wish they'd teach them that now. Anyhow,
I remember that.
That's about it.
Well, what were some of the social events that happened in Unadilla in those times? I mean, I read about the barn dances. Did that happen very often?
Where'd you read that?
In your memories.
Oh, yeah, they had barn dance. My dad, I remember when they built the barn. And I can remember they had the south side of the barn. They built it on the ground. And then all the men would get behind it and they'd push it up. And we had a new barn. And a beautiful barn floor. And my dad he loved to have parties. And I got that from him because I loved to have parties. He had a barn dance, and local music, and one thing in particular, I was still in grade school, my sister and I, my brother, and at one of the dances, my dad introduced my mother to one of the boys that came from Ann Arbor to the dance, and he told her that was Jerry Ford, and Jerry danced with her, and that was always a big deal to us. And then Debbie, my daughter, she wrote to Jerry Ford and mentioned it to him, and he said, well, he didn't remember it, but he didn't have a car, and he didn't have any way to get up there. Well, he came with a bunch of other boys. So I believe it. Anyhow, we had a lot of good barn dances. My dad loved to call square dances. And on Saturdays, down in Unadilla, up here in Gregory, when my folks moved in 36, they moved to the house on the corner. And my dad would go up to the tavern and play cards. And then when he'd come back, we had a great big dining room and hardwood floors. And we'd push the dining room table back, and my dad would call square dances. Before that, I would go uptown, and I'd tell everybody I saw that I had a chocolate cake. I made a chocolate cake on Saturday. And I told them, and then they'd all come down there and have cake. And we'd play spin the bottle and postmaster and all those good sexy games. Anyhow, that's where we had our Saturdays.
Did you belong to a church in Unadilla?
Presbyterian church. And my mother was a Sunday school teacher, and we would always go down there, and I remember especially sitting with my grandmother, because they were the founding members, or the original members of the church down in Unadilla. And then I always, of course, Christmas program, I always had the welcome speech to give, and I guess that's about it.
So how did you celebrate Christmas when you were a little girl?
Well, we always got a doll, us girls, and we had a Christmas tree, and my aunts and uncles would come, and Grandma, when she was alive, they would all come, and we'd celebrate down there in Unadilla in that house. That's torn down now. It's right beside the store that used to. And I missed that store because my mother, she'd send me and my sister down to get a loaf of bread, and we'd always ask, do you want a double loaf or a single loaf? Because at that time you could buy a loaf of bread and it'd have a crease down the center, and that would be a double loaf of bread. And I remember that especially. And then they'd have dances up over the store, some lodge, and I'm not going to say because I'm not sure what lodge it was, but they had dances up over the store, and we'd all go, and my sister and I and brother, we'd get tired, so we'd line the chairs up and lay on them when we got tired, and then we'd have to go down those steps. There was outside steps that went up to it, and then when we got home, we'd make believe we were half asleep, so Dad would have to carry us in. Aside from that, just normal things, I guess. My mother was always a good gardener, so we would always help with the flower bed and garden stuff. And we had chickens, and we had to help gather the eggs and stuff, just normal stuff.
Did your mom put away a lot of food? Did she do a lot of canning?
Oh, yeah, she did a lot of canning. And then they would butcher a cow and can that. And then my dad would go hunting, and I remember him hanging squirrels up on the clothesline and stripping the skin down off of them. And I just don't know what there was to eat in a squirrel, but they did it.
Squirrel stew.
And then one time when my dad came down here to look for work. They lived up in Deckerville. They moved from here up in Deckerville. And my dad came down here one winter and stayed with me. And he said, well, I want to can a quarter of beef. So he bought a quarter of beef, and I said, I don't know how to do it. Oh, yeah, there's nothing to it. You just cut up the pieces of beef about like that, put them in a can, put a little water on them, and put them in the cooker. And it was the best stuff there is. Good gravy. Yeah, and she would always can a lot of vegetables and stuff like that.
So you'd have to help her pick things and prepare.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We had an apple orchard. We'd have to pick up the apples, make applesauce.
So when did you move to Stockbridge?
I never lived in Stockbridge. I always lived down here on the corner.
Right.
On the corner of where you go to 106 and turn left and go to Unadilla. That house right there on the corner. And I drove, my dad got a permit for me to drive before I was legally supposed to, I guess. And he had a Ford car that he got for me, and I drove to school. And I picked up a couple boys here, and on the way up there, I had a couple girls. And
so you went to high school in Stockbridge? Yeah.
I never went to Gregory school. I went right from
Unadilla right to Stockbridge. So you were essentially the bus.
The what?
The bus that took kids from Unadilla to Stockbridge.
Yeah.
So, what were your favorite subjects in high school?
I can tell you what my unfavorite one was.
What was your unfavorite?
Math.
Math.
And Kurt White was my math teacher.
Oh, no, really?
I did not like math, but home ec, I enjoyed that mostly. The other ones just came and went.
When did you meet your husband?
Down at Unadilla and at the auction. My folks had a farm auction. And Rollins' father, Frank Stoffer, and Rollin went to that auction because it was in 1936. And Rollin had graduated. And his dad says, well, there's Clarence Cranny's daughter right there. So that's when he first saw me. And I remember my sister and my mother had made us dresses. And they were red dresses with a tan collar and a tan sash. And that's what we had on. I remember that so special. Anyhow, that's when he first saw me. And then I really don't remember how we really spoke to each other. I don't remember that. But I know he worked for his brother-in-law, Mike Bowdish, and he would drive past the place up there. He lived with Mike and Evelyn Bowdish there in town, here in town. And he'd always go past my house. And
so were you in high school then? Or were you younger?
I started high school in 36.
In 36?
He graduated in the spring, and I started in the fall.
So he was 4 years older than you, essentially.
Yeah.
So when did you get married?
1940.
In 1940.
I graduated in the spring, and we got married in November 30th in the fall.
So how did you start out your married life? Where did you live?
First of all, we lived with his sister, Evelyn and Mike Bowdish, right there in town, going on 106. And then my mother and dad had an apartment upstairs in the one house on the corner. And an old man lived up there. Well, then when he was gone, we moved up there. And we lived there, I don't know how many years, but not a whole lot of years. And then Rollin, he went to work for King Seeley in Florida, at Ann Arbor. And while he was working in Ann Arbor, after we left my folks' house apartment, we came up here and lived in this house across the road. And when we lived there, he started working in King Seeley, and then he started building this house. And he didn't have a plan, didn't have anything. He just started building. It was a 2-car garage in there. And then it just kept on growing. And I saw a thing in a paper or something where it said, can you imagine building a house without a plan? And that's what he did. No plans, but it certainly turned out to be pretty good.
You had 5 children?
I had 5 children.
5 children.
I had 6. One was stillborn. But it was funny because we got thinking about it. First I had a son, Kenneth. Next I had a daughter, Sharon. Next I had a son, David, who is gone. Then I had a daughter, Linda. And then in between I had the boy that was stillborn. And then we had Debbie. Every other one was a boy, girl, boy, girl. And we got so when we went to the hospital, we just about knew what we had. And we didn't have a lot of money. Rollin worked first up in Plainfield at the farm place. And then he started working for Howlett's Hardware. And then he went to the post office and he was mailman on the route. And I know I remember once we had babysitter. If we wanted, we took square dance lessons at Stockbridge. And we'd have a square babysitter. And we didn't have any money, and they didn't have decent pajamas, so I had some outing flannels, so I made them pajamas and things before we went, so they would look decent for the babysitter.
Yeah, there must have been a lot of challenges for raising kids in those days.
Oh, yeah.
Very different challenges than today. What were some of those difficulties in raising kids at that time?
Well, thank goodness it wasn't like today. They were pretty normal and pretty good. David was the one that I fretted about a lot because he liked to drink and he wrecked a car but he just one time he had a cut on his chin. Took him to Dr. Beckwith and it was in the morning. I mean, I had to wait until morning, and then he couldn't sew it up because it had been too long. So David still had that scar down there. But and then Debbie, it wasn't epilepsy, but if she heard a loud noise or banged her head on something, she would lose go into convulsions, sort of.
Have a seizure.
And it would scare the dickens out of us. And I'd pick her up and run down next door to the neighbors down there with her because I just didn't want to be here alone with her. And then we'd start for Dr. Beckwith's. And of course, by the time we got up there, she was okay. And the last time, and she remembers it, we took all the kids and went to Henry Ford Village. And she stubbed her toe and fell on the sidewalk. And she had another seizure. And she remembers that. She would just be out of it for a few seconds or a few minutes and then be okay. But we had phenobarbital tablets for her. And the little stinker, she knew I kept them up in the cupboard. She climbed up there and got a bunch of them and took them. And we had to take her to emergency and have her stomach pumped.
Oh, dear.
But she remembers, she said she told me just the other day she remembers finding X-Lax in the cupboard and thought it was chocolate candy. And she said it didn't taste good.
As your children grew up and jumped out of the nest, what are some of the things that you got involved with?
That I did what?
That you got involved with, the organizations or the activities or the hobbies that you've done?
Oh, well, the main hobby was drying weeds and flowers, and I would always make them out there in that shed. That was my flower shed, and I loved doing dried arrangements. And we took square dance lessons, and I went up to joined the PTA here in Gregory. We had and then we'd go to Stockbridge. And I guess that's about all the organizations that I ever belonged to. I worked down at Munsel's grocery store for probably a year part-time. I know I did that before I graduated even. And I didn't join any other PTAs, about the only thing I can remember. And I played in the band and in high school. I was always upset with my dad because he had a trombone, so I had to play a trombone. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that was a boy's instrument, but I had to play that. I wanted to play a saxophone. I don't remember any other organization except church. And
so were you still a member of the Unadilla Presbyterian Church? Or yeah. So as you look back on your life, what do you think the happiest times of your life were?
Oh gosh, I don't know if there was any special time. We did an awful lot of traveling after the kids got got out of school and things, and we'd travel out west, and we had a lot of good travels out there and up through Canada. And one time I heard we had a travel thing.
An RV or a house trailer?
Well, it was a big house trailer, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And all contained. And we had that, and we were going along, and I kept having this pain in the back of my shoulder. We went up through Canada, and they made me go to the hospital, or I had to because it hurt. Had catheterizations and everything, and then they figured I might have had a heart problem, but I didn't have one. So I remember that. But the other travels, they were wonderful. We just saw an awful lot of stuff out west. We never went overseas. My grandfather came right from Scotland. And then Ben, he's already gone. Ben was over to Scotland from Alma College. And he went to the county seat there and asked about my grandfather. And we were always told he came over here with his sister. And he came to Detroit to look for work. And when Ben went to find out about him, she said, "Oh no, that was his mother he came with." And your mother always said, "You turn over enough stones and you're going to find out something hid somewhere." And we did.
I'm sure that happened quite frequently.
And so he came here with his mother, and that was, then I don't know how he met my grandmother, but they lived in the house next to the store down there. And then they owned the farm up the road, and that's where we lived.
Your grandmother's family lived a very simple life, didn't they?
Yeah, there was my father and two sisters, and they lived there by the store. My grandfather was a farmer, and he tried to get my dad interested in farming. Well, Dad just wasn't a farmer. He did it, but he didn't like it. And then he went to work for the elevator company and ended up driving trucks. And they ended up in Deckerville after I was married. And that's when they moved up there. Anyhow.
It sounded like for him, he liked people. He liked, and farming was just a little bit too lonely and isolating for him.
For my dad.
For your dad.
Yeah, but he went to work at the elevator, and then he drove truck with beans down in some of the other states. And
good. Well, thank you very much for telling us the story of your life.
Well,
it's very interesting to see the whole scope of your life from a one-room schoolhouse.
Well, we went through the time of hardships. What do you call it?
Yeah, difficulties. And the depression.
Depression. It was so. We didn't have any money down on the farm when my dad was trying to do the farming, and it was such a hard time. And I can remember very special when we didn't even have soap to do dishes with, and finally we were able to buy some soap for dishwashing, and it was just the most wonderful thing. You don't realize it, but I went through it. Yeah. And then Dad had planned to take us kids to Holland to go camping. with a tap. And he was going to sell it, had a cow to sell. And the sale didn't go through. So we didn't have the money to go with, so he borrowed from his mother, and we went camping. And then when I graduated, we still didn't have much money. And I didn't have any money to go on. We went to Washington to state, to the school trip. And I had to borrow money from her to go on the trip. But I drove to school, and then my dad was a friend of Rob Dancer. And they played cards together, and I remember Rob came down to the Unadilla house there, and must be Herb Collins came down too. And Dad had me making homemade salad dressing on the cook stove. And Herb Collins was there also. And he went home and told his son, there was a good woman to look at, told Lauren. But then Dad was acquainted with Rob Dancer. So in my probably 11th grade, I stayed up with Herb and Daisy Dancer, Daisy Dancer and Rob. And I stayed there and would get up in the morning and get breakfast going, and then help the kids go to school and everything. And then I'd come home at night and help them. And I was there when the house caught on fire, and I went out to call the kids in. Daisy had told me to go out and call them in at a certain time, and I did, and they came in, and the house was on fire. So I had to stay with Doreen and Glenn, and the girls stayed with the other dancer, Gern
and Winley.
And I remember once when, it's crazy, but I didn't have a whole lot of clothes either when I was in high school. And she and Rob went to Chicago, and I stayed there with the kids. And she brought me back a twin sweater set, and that was so special. But we laugh about it now. Christine, Howlett, what's the one that married?
Anne. Anne Howlett?
No, Sally and Lib.
Oh, Ford.
Yeah.
Libby Ford and Sally.
And I was going to the foot doctor in Chelsea, and she would always be there the same time I was. So I got to see her. Oh, I guess nothing else much.
Well, it seems like a very interesting life to us. So thank you, and we'll end our interview here. Thank you very much.